and welcome to Transcendental Transformation, the place where spirituality and transformation unite. Host Miss Raina imparts truth so that you can break through your limiting beliefs and evolve into a deeper consciousness. As you go about your day, remember, before every breakthrough, there is a breakdown. And now, let's start the show.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of Transcendental Transformation. I'm your host, Miss Raina, and today is Tuesday, May 18th, 2021. As always, we're coming live from the Sirius Star System studios right here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I hope all is well with everybody. So I was looking at, I'm always a nerd and I love fun facts and all these geeky little things, and I was looking because, obviously there's Mother's Day and other things, May the 4th, and I was just looking to see what other holidays there was in. And today actually happens to be, and there's some weird holidays. I don't know where people come up with this, but hey, I'm always down for the weirder, the better. But today is National No Dirty Dishes Day. And I said, wow, we actually have a National No Dirty Dishes Day. I was like, there must be a lot of people out there that that don't clean their dishes. And I'm guilty. Sometimes I'm one of them. I like my clean house, but, I get lazy too. And sometimes don't always clean. But I always thought that was weird because I go through each month just kind of seeing the fun facts of what's going on and what kind of holidays there are. And other than the major ones. And tomorrow, though, this is where it's going to kill me because tomorrow is actually National Devil's Food Cake Day, and I do mostly vegan stuff and vegetarian, but I do love my chocolate, and that is a guilty pleasure of mine. I am guilty, and yes, when I'm in Whole Foods, I try to always go for the vegan chocolate muffins, and when I do, but Devil's Food Cake just sounds so delicious. I just want some right now. So I'm going to stop talking about it because, yes, it's a guilty pleasure of mine. But yeah, I just find it funny how many times there are so many little national holidays we have, and I think it's kind of fun to kind of explore that. But anyways, all right, guys, that's enough for my geekiness. Anyways, as always, guys, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, or Twitter, or no, Twitch. I got it right this time, and I messed it up. It's you know what? I don't know why I always confuse Twitter with Twitch. I guess they sound the same phonetically. But we are on live with Twitch, Periscope, LinkedIn, and Daily Motion. And as always, the replays will be in the links below. So I am super excited because I have a special guest for you, someone who we had a conversation with, and just has fabulous energy. I just we connected right away, and I was like, all right, I want to have you on the show because I just think she's got so much to offer. And her name is Christine Marie, and she is an author and a storyteller, a poet, a photographer, an intuitive empath, and a gatherer of divine medicine to heal herself and the collective. Her creative self-expression and spiritual connection are gateways back to her true self and her inner knowing. She is an advocate for positive change around destigmatizing mental health, domestic violence, and human disconnection. She urges the need for self-love, self-reflection, and spiritual connection in order to create a more conscious, loving human evolution. So please help me welcome Christine Marie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. This is so exciting, and that was a really beautiful intro. I had chills all throughout my arms as you were just saying those words. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm honored to have you. When we connected, we had that talk, and I know I was a little hyperactive that day because I had my morning juice right when we were talking. But the energy that you share was so amazing, and I was just like, all right. I was like, the moment we connected, I was like, all right, she's got to be on the show. So before we get into everything that you who let tell people who you are.
Yeah, hi. Well, I guess you kind of said it in the bio that you already had, but Christine Marie, and I'm on a path of healing myself. Throughout my path of healing myself, I'm here to express the wisdom and the insight and the learnings that I get by healing myself to help heal other people. I really am a person who loves creative self-expression and spiritual connection with the divine, and I use those as portals to open up healing within our communities.
One of the things that I loved that I saw that is in the bio is that I think that in order for us to heal, we have to start looking at things as we have to start healing ourselves, because there's so many of us as the unhealed healers. We want to help people because we're truly trying to help ourselves. And I think that's amazing that you're like, you know what, I'm actually healing myself first, and then I'm going to pass that wisdom and knowledge on to others.
Definitely. Yeah, I cannot share a story or share an experience within my healing unless I've healed a certain part of it, because at that time when you are going through something, it's so raw and so personal and so emotional that I would be doing myself a disservice if I just went outward with not even the wisdom or not even really alchemizing the pain I've experienced yet. So I have to really go inward first in order to really gain the lessons and the wisdom in order to share with others. And that can be a long process.
It is. It is. People don't realize. I think the number one thing I think that's distinctual between healers and people that want to be healers are the healers actually understand that you have to go through it. You have to pick apart yourself. You have to really dissect everything. And really, there's always layers to it. I'm always working on stuff. Even if I've gone over things, I'm still pulling those information from my past that I have to. A lot of us, that we what we do is we hear something enough, or we read so many books and we think that we're healers. And while that knowledge is great, that doesn't make us healers in the sense of unless we've healed it on our own and come to that resolution and understanding of that knowledge.
Definitely. Yeah. And then there's this also like interesting statistic that only 10% of what you read, you only actually integrate into your life. So I feel like by doing the healing yourself, that allows the integration process more flowingly. And yeah, I just think that's the only way is through the darkness, you know?
Yes, absolutely. But that is an interesting statistic, because 10%, I mean, we only use 10%. Well, most of us use 10% of our brain. And what's funny is that yes, because I'm a terrible reader. I really am. Like I'm one of those that if I see something or if I mess with something, I can figure it out all day. I can break down a computer, tear it apart, rebuild it. But if I see it in a book and I have to read it, I'm like, so maybe my percentage is like half a percent that I would take. But it is true. And I think that we're always the biggest problem that we're sharing, or the biggest problem that we're experiencing as a collective, is the external. We're looking for it externally.
Absolutely. Yeah. And honestly, one of my biggest missions is to create a connecting and loving community within the whole. And I don't think it's as cliche as it sounds, but I don't believe that you can create something more loving and something more connecting externally until you do it within.
Yes.
So I feel a greater sense of disconnection with somebody because I'm actually more disconnected from myself. And the process of writing and using these other tools, like energy healing and all of that, gives me that greater sense of connection within.
Well, a lot of people are going to say, once you start saying, "Oh, I want to start doing the collective and loving community," all of a sudden we hear this term "woo woo," and it's a terrible stigma that that the society is starting to change into. Because I used to do a lot of networkings, and one of the things that I just disliked about them was the judgment that it was. Because there's a lot of people that say, the moment you say, "Well, I'm a healer, I'm here to help people, I want to help the world transition, and I'm learning myself," because hey, we're all learning. None of us are. If we're in line, we wouldn't be here, right? And the but once someone says connective and lovingness, we tend to think of it woo woo, but it's not woo woo. It's really a fact of the matter of our evolution as we're growing, especially now that we're going through this evolutionary jump right now.
Yes, yes. And the fact that we feel so disconnected is just like this illness that's spreading. And in order to feel more connected to each other, we have to be honest in our own evolution and in our own growth and in our own shadows and blind spots. And that takes a lot of diving deep and peeling back the layers of our conditioning and our traumas. And that isn't work that people want to wake up and do every day. But
Yeah.
to be honest with you, I find a lot of joy and fulfillment in doing it and having it be a part of my daily practice.
But and the shadows are in our minds. We have this idea of good and bad and right and wrong, and I always tell people you got to get rid of those ideas because they just keep us in limitations. And shadow work it's kind of like positive and negative. We think that positive is good and negative is bad, but in reality it's sort of like two magnets, and it's their attractions to each other in order to create a whole unity and for us to understand it. And we look at positive because we've been told that positivity is something good and we got to go towards it, and the negativity we got to get rid of. But the shadows and the negative side, the feminine side of who we are, is very helpful because that is what that is what allows us to grow into something deeper. And when we reject those shadows, we really don't learn anything, do we?
No, not at all. I say, like, in order to expand, you must contract.
Yes.
You must contract. And it's a constant cycle, it's a constant process of shedding and renewing. And it's just like what nature teaches us, you know? So, yeah, I find the most beautiful things come from when you are able to go into the deeper roots of something and take the nutrients and grow and fertilize them and blossom them into being.
And I love that analogy actually, because if we look at the world around us, everything is in cycles. Everything is born, everything dies, everything rebirths, everything and nothing. It doesn't matter if it's a living object or it's all energy, and everything breaks down eventually. And I think that's where humanity is eventually going, because I feel that even though there's a lot of fighting right now, because a lot of people are like, oh my God, the world's going in chaos and it's worse than ever. But there's always been fire to this world. But I think that in during this shift, it's kind of creating two worlds where we're kind of seeing where there's people that are understanding that, hey, we got to start going along with this and evolving, and the other ones that are going to kind of fight it and create more chaos within themselves.
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think that people have to understand is, and one of the things I love about you is you have such great self-expression. I mean, you're an author, you're a poet, you do photography, and I love photography, but I'm probably not as good as you. But that self-expression really brings out who you are. How did you find that self-expression?
Mm, I'm just gonna sit with that for a second. To be honest with you, it was the only place that I felt safe enough to express myself and what I was experiencing. And that happened for me when I was a little girl and picked up just, a pen and a piece of paper. And I grew up in a environment where I couldn't express my needs. I had to keep quiet and kind of shrink myself small in order to not make more, chaos in the home. And what I did was I turned to writing in order
Wow.
to find a safe, sacred space for self-expression. And in that safe, sacred space, I realized that what I was doing, I was just channeling. I was not only like emotionally connecting deeper to myself, but I was channeling wisdom and love and learnings from the divine. And that was the medium in which I was able to do that. And it's something that I don't think happened by accident. I think it's one of my greatest gifts, and one of my greatest purposes of being on earth. And I just want to inspire other people to find that, or to just exercise that more, or to really, really, really connect within their heart space of what can I do in order to create more of a sense of connection to myself and to the greater good of humanity and the divine. And for me, that's writing and creative self-expression. And we all have that. I
Yeah.
think I think a lot of the times, especially in our type of society that we live in, it's just not recognized
Yes.
or appraised as much, and that's like the divine feminine. That's that's the beautiful part of like just connecting into that energetic part of me that I think was getting pushed down for a very long time.
Well, in our society, the feminine aspect of our society is all over the place. It has been smashed, and at one time, societies used to be equal. It used to value both masculine and feminine, both sides. And then all of a sudden, religion came in, and things came in, ideas came in, different gods and goddesses, and things. And we've transitioned to from going from more of an equal base thing to okay, I need to be better than one is stronger. And even today we're fighting who's the better of the sex, is man or woman. And it's not that. And I know right away you're saying, oh well, I'm connecting to the divine feminine, and the men are like, okay, I'm done. Well, I'm not, and they start rejecting that right away. But that doesn't mean that that all of a sudden you're going to start changing who you are or anything. It's an aspect of who you are as unity. And I like how you or I liked how you said the fact that you saw a separation, but at the same time, in order for you to connect, you needed to feel safe. And I think that's the most important part, is that creativeness got you to that understanding of safety, and when you felt safe, you were able to express yourself.
Yes, yes. Great, great way of putting it. Absolutely. And it's interesting because we all have these feminine and masculine parts, but for the men, the masculine was taught that it had to be a certain way, and for the women, the feminine was taught it had to be a certain way. And I'm really, really seeing the beautiful unity of both, and a woman and a man expressing and really embracing both, and it's a really beautiful shift to see in our world right now.
It is. And I love the fact, because I'm gender fluid, and there are times I feel very feminine, times I feel feminine, but a lot of times I don't feel anything at all. I just feel like unified within them. And a lot of people see that. They're always like, they scratch their head and they're like, I see two sides of you at the same time. And I'm like, you don't know how empowering that is, because I was raised in that type of society too, where men do certain things and women do other things, and you can't cross the two. And if you're a man and you do this, well, then you could be gay or this or that, or you're put down. And if you're a woman, then you're supposed to act a certain way. And it really destroys who we are as a person. But Christine, we're gonna be right back, and we're gonna take a message right after these messages. Okay.
The human experience is changing, and consciousness is evolving into something higher than any of us could ever imagine. As we transform into more sentient beings, a new world of connected consciousness is taking place. Welcome to I Am Evolution, the movement in human development that transforms the human experience into a deeper consciousness through perspective and duality. Are you ready to be a part of the next stage in human evolution? Call I Am Evolution today to schedule your appointment at 561 318 0006. That's 561 318 0006. Or email us at iamevolution@protonmail.com.
All right, everybody, we are back. And if you're just joining us, we have the absolutely fabulous and lovely Christine Marie. And Christine, it's funny how our society does separate men and women. And I think that it doesn't matter whether you're a man or whether you're a woman, we feel that separation because that's what society expects of us. And a piece of us dies. And one of the things that I love is you write and you say your creative self expression heals you. How does your self-expression or your writing, the practice actually heal you?
Hmm. Yeah, it all goes back to really the birth of that sacred container that I provide for myself. And in knowing that I can provide that for myself makes me trust myself and makes me feel closer to myself than I ever thought I possibly could. And when I write, it is like I am in my divine flow. I am in that space of nothingness. I'm in that space of just presence. And to begin getting those thoughts out on paper that are so muddy and murky and can create such an upheaval in our minds and such a battle, I, instead of internalizing them, I just write them down. And by doing that, I can really see the difference between like those thoughts that are quote unquote negative or toxic, and the reality of actually who I truly am, and realizing like I'm not those thoughts, I'm not the traumas that I have experienced. I am this divine spiritual living being, and I have gifts to share and give to the world. But a lot of the times we get in our own ways, and our minds just love to battle.
Yeah.
So it helps me, it kind of just helps me have a clear portal to myself.
Have you ever seen the movie Soul?
I
It's
watched it 2 days in a row. Yes.
Yes, that's when you were talking. It reminds me of that because it is people. A lot of people ask me that they're like, Miss Raina, when you're on the radio and you're talking, I just see you. You just start flowing and you just start going, and you could tell you're not even reading your script or anything. And they're like, how do you get to that? And it's everything that you said, because you provide a space for it. It's not going down and just saying, okay, I'm going to grab this pen and paper and I'm just going to start writing. And that's what I loved about that movie, because it was about that. This guy was chasing his need to feel loved and the need to be wanted and appreciated. And he thought that if he got this, that he was going to achieve this and all the people would love him and his life would be meaning. But he didn't really realize that he was by connecting to himself and doing what he loved was more important than actual what people thought of him. And I love that story. And it reminded me of what you were just saying, because it is really truly of the reality of who we are.
Yes, that's seriously probably my favorite movie. So I
it,
love that. Thank you. That's a compliment.
it made me cry so many times too. And I'm a big baby a lot of times. I start crying at everything, and more cartoons than anything. And but it really needs to be like that. And I think that's one of the things that I loved about when we connected the first time, and I read who you were and I saw the books and everything like that, and just kind of what you offered, your poetry, because a lot of people sit there and say, well, you know what, I'm not a creative person, so how do I get into those modes if I'm not a creative person?
We all are creative. That's who we are.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be through art form. People are like, I can't paint or draw, right? I'm like, you can, make yourself a sandwich. You can go on a walk and talk to the trees. Like, we are all creative beings,
Yes. Yes.
We just have to be open and to surrendering and listening to the messages that come through and really honoring them. Like, I remember there were so many times before I made writing like an active practice, a daily thing, where like I had this intuition or this message of like, write it down, like write. And I would totally dishonor that because I had better things to do.
Yes.
But but we do ourselves such a disservice if we don't embrace those moments, and don't embrace those just moments of connection with ourselves, and you never know what's going to happen. I love that. I love just like being like how freeing it is to just kind of come to the piece of paper without any expectations, and then you gain like this either newfound insight, act of wisdom, or just like overall a release of of an emotion that you've been holding in for so long. So I just love it. It's so beautiful.
And you're 100% right, because we all are creative. And I think when we think of creativity, automatically we think you either got to be a musician or an artist. And there's so many times, like, I have cameras behind me. Obviously, this is the home studio that we have, and I go out and I'm not trying to be the next who, I don't know, Andy Warhol or anything like that. I'm just taking pictures, and to me, like yesterday, I went out to the dog park and I took pictures. And to me, they're beautiful, not because I'm trying to win an award or anything like that, just because it helped me open up. And I don't care if other people like him. If everyone says, oh, she's the worst at taking pictures, I don't care, because that's me connecting, because I'm seeing the beauty in the animals and the trees and everything. I'm connecting to that moment. And so you don't have to be an artist. You don't have to be great at it. If you love making pottery and it comes out sideways and everything, but you love it and that space allows you to connect, then you need to go with it.
Yeah, I think too there's this interesting stereotype of like, oh, if I didn't go to school for something, or if I didn't get trained appropriately in something, then I'm not any good at it. I didn't go to school for writing.
Yes.
I just did it.
Yes.
I just did it because it's what my heart needed to do. And, and that's okay. Or, I love photography. I didn't go to school for photography. I just taught myself and just kept practicing and answering the call to just want to connect greater to nature and to a greater sense of myself and just see a different perspective of the world than I haven't before. And it's just, yeah, it's such a lovely experience.
I think that's what we have to start learning to understand, is shift, to not only shift our perspective, but also be open to it. Because I always consider, I tried being in music. I playing the trumpet for my mom when I was little, and I was just terrible at it. And so and I've tried painting, but I found out that, yeah, speaking, being creative. There was one time I remember I was sitting down and I found these two sticks, or two big, I guess I call them sticks. They're huge. And I ended up making some stuff out of it. And they were after a hurricane, and I picked them up and I felt that energy draw. And I was like, well, you know what? Let's get some birch branches and let's try to make a broom and all sorts of different things. And I've never done it. And I just connected and I was like, and all of a sudden I was like, where did this come from? I was like, that is so cool. Where is it? And I was like, I never do that. And right then and there, I knew that I was capable of anything if you just connect. And I think that's what's great about your message, is that you didn't have to go to school for it. You don't need a degree for it. You don't need a degree to be this strong, independent, creative person. You just have to be you.
Yes, absolutely. I love that.
Yeah, one of the things that you wrote a book called Breaking Free, a self-healing journey, or that's the new book, correct? Okay, so what brought you to that? What was the idea behind it?
Oh, um, to be quite frankly, it started off in a time where I felt like very alone in my experiences of what I went through. And I felt like a sense of unbelonging in this world, and a sense of just like honestly a lot of self-hatred, and like how I felt like this me being on this earth was like a burden to other people, and it was because I just didn't have any self-love. And so I it came to be because it was just this expression of I'm going to dismantle all of which I've identified as. And in that moment, it was like I kept seeing myself as like this broken person because I came from this broken family.
Yes.
And I remember I would walk into rooms and like be like, I wonder if they can tell how broken I am. Like I just assumed everybody else saw me the same way, which is like completely wrong. And when writing this, I realized how much I inherited so much of my parents' traumas, so much of my own traumas, and that became my identity. And I didn't want to live. Like I was super depressed, on and off, antidepressants, having extreme episodes of panic attacks, and just a longing to leave this world, if I'm being quite transparent. And it wasn't until I began to realize that my soul chose this lifetime, my parents, to be birthed into this world for a reason.
Yes.
And I was able to alchemize and still am able to alchemize a lot of the pain and the trauma that I've endured into wisdom and newfound love and just like a different perspective of like why I'm here and what I'm meant to do.
Y- I think that's one of the things that we have to start understanding. We always think that there's a puppeteer that's controlling us, that our lives are that that there's someone out there saying, "Okay, this is what's going to happen to you and you have no control over it." And yes, there is a thing called fate and there are things that happen in our life that are meant, but this is in our blueprint and we write this stuff and we write this stuff on our own. And the victim inside of us looks at that because that's what our society teaches us, that we have no control everything. You're supposed to go to, if you want control, you want to go to school, get married, have the job, do this, have a perfect life, and everything will be good. But that's not reality. And for someone like you or many millions of people all over this world who come from what they say a broken home, we look at that and we tend to beat ourselves up because we think we kind of get the raw end of the deal. But I think that what's the shift that is wonderful about you and that adds strength is saying, you know what? I chose this life. My soul chose this life for whatever reason. Yes, I'm depressed. Yes, I'm this. But we can take our depression and our panic attacks and all these ideas. And that's one of the things that I used to do when I was younger is I was always depressed. And I said, you know what? There's a reason why I'm depressed. So let's go into that depression and start learning why I'm depressed and start learning what the triggers are that's causing me to depress so that I can evolve from them and not be depressed anymore.
Definitely. Yeah. I think in order for us to really gain a greater understanding of why we are feeling the way that we are, or why we're on this path of maybe that doesn't feel in alignment with our true self, is we have to get to the roots
Yes.
of the issue. We have to get to the roots to the, and that is the most painful, discomforting part of the process. And there's a lot of people that run away from it. But I honestly, the more I kept running away from that part, the more it just swallowed me up.
Yes.
And I just had to say, I'm going to face it, I'm going to embrace it, and I'm just going to I'm going to come home to myself. I'm going to come home to my true self, and I have to go within to do that.
But our challenges and our emotions do swallow us up if we allow them to. And a lot of us identify, there are so many stigmas. That's, I don't, there's a lot of words that I dislike, especially in mental health and all. And because once we say we have a disability, all of a sudden we shoot ourselves down and we say, well, there's nothing I can do about it because I'm disabled now or I have this disability. And, I've gone through being bipolar, depressed, panic attacks, PTSD, all sorts of stuff because I had a lot of trauma in my childhood as well. And those are just terms. And I think once you identify it, that it locks you into this idea where, yes, you're not going to be able, the moment you say, yes, this is who I am, that is who you are. And it does swallow you up because I know, like you and we share that similar thing, how depression and how these ideas just engulf you where you don't turn on the lights, you don't open the shades. And that's a very dark, scary place for a lot of people to be. And I can understand why people don't want to visit that.
Yeah, and it's super shameful. We've never been taught how to even like work with that shame. And I think that's the hardest part. Like there's the pain and the trauma of our experiences, but then there's a shame around, well, why didn't I do something different? Or why, or like the poor me victim mentality of like, why did this happen to me instead of for me? Like all these other places that we can go into. And I'm not saying there isn't room for that, but I think it can just be so incredibly disheartening to sit in those spaces and to honestly, like, it just made me feel very paralyzed, like kind of what you said of like a lack of control over my life, where in reality it's like I have control over how I react to this. I have control over how I heal this. And it's up to me to find the strength and to ask for help when I need it.
Yes. Yes. But a lot of us, like I said, like, or like you said, it's shameful, or at least that's how we project it. Oh my, nobody understands this, or if I say this, I'm going to look weak. I'm going to look pathetic. And the words just start coming out because our ego really likes to play that. It really likes to play that idea and say, hey, you can't say anything because, and we do. And so we chase these ideas of trying to be cool, of trying to get external gratification and all these things because we think it's going to somehow trigger that emotional release and it's going to save us from ourselves. But in reality, what we have to do is start looking at and stop saying, well, why didn't I do something? But yes, why did this happen to me? But not in a victim sense, but okay, let's understand us. Let's learn. Why is this happening? It's like any job we do. Well, hey, if I'm doing electricity and the power's out, why is the power out? You're not going to beat yourself up and say, oh my God, the power's out. What a horrible thing. You're going to deduct and start looking at things. And I think we have to do the same thing. But Kristen, we're going to take a break and we're going to be right back after these messages.
The human experience is changing, and consciousness is evolving into something higher than any of us could ever imagine. As we transform into more sentient beings, a new world of connected consciousness is taking place. Welcome to I Am Evolution, the movement in human development that transforms the human experience into a deeper consciousness through perspective and duality. Are you ready to be a part of the next stage in human evolution? Call I Am Evolution today to schedule your appointment at 561 318 0006. That's 561 318 0006. Or email us at iamevolution@protonmail.com.
All right, everybody, we are back. And if you're just joining us, this is the last part of the show. And Christine, I am having a fabulous time, and it is going by so fast. It always does. But I think what the message that you're saying is so impactful, and we have to start learning to get over the ideas of shame and why did this happen to me and beating ourselves up. It's hard because when we're depressed or we're playing that victim, it is really hard. One of the things that I noticed that you stayed often and that you said is about fear. And I noticed that you've written about fear and you talk about fear. And fear can really, really trigger us to create perceptions that maybe aren't really true. So how have you kept how has your publishings and writing and your work have kept you from getting indulged through fear?
Hmm. Fear is a tricky one because I think fear tells us a lot, and sometimes it's helpful. It tells us that we care so deeply about something. But the biggest fear for me with publishing Breaking Free was being honest about my story and and showing that I'm not this perfect human. And I know that's kind of funny to say because we all know that nobody's perfect, but I think a lot of us subconsciously create this idea of like we want to be or we wish we were.
Yes.
So for me, it was just like allowing myself to kind of let go of that ego of like, I'm human too.
Yes.
I have a lot of light and a lot of love and gifts to give, but I'm also human and I struggle. And I've been through a domestic abusive relationship and I've, had depression and an eating disorder and like all these things that again are super shameful to talk about out loud. But for me, I feel I felt just like that spark within my heart of like it was like my duty to share my story in order to create a sense of just not aloneness in our world and to create this like looking past the illusion that we have to be this perfect person or that we go through life, some of us have perfect lives and I just think that's a bunch of crap. um, but also it's like how can I use my story to inspire other people and to help heal other people, and writing about it was the only way that I knew how.
People feel alone because we see separation. And I always tell that I don't care how spiritual you are, how advanced someone thinks they are. if you feel alone, it's because you're seeing separation and you're feeling separation, and that's conditioned. Because even though in the spiritual community we say, well, everyone's one, and that, but if you say everyone's one, but then you say, well, I feel like I'm the only person on earth that understands this, or I feel like I don't connect to anybody, well, then you're seeing separation and you're being separate. And that idea of separation is only in our third dimensional world. And we have to start understanding that that's just an illusion. And that starts with being honest. And I absolutely love the fact that you talk about, I said, you know what, I had to be honest with myself, because that's the first thing that you have to start with, is be honest with yourself. No matter how shameful, no matter how hard it is, if you're not honest with yourself, then you're not going to grow. And we lie to ourselves constantly. As you said, you're so, well, we try to be perfect, we try to be all these things, we try to be the best in our fields, just because we're trying to make up for what we're lacking inside. But being honest in itself, truly believe, because I've seen it and I've gone through it myself, when we're honest with ourselves, it makes our challenges that much easier to tackle.
Yeah, and you're being a mirror for somebody else. If I saw somebody and I felt like they had it all figured out, I would feel like, well, what's wrong with me? Instead of really seeing like, yes, they're a spiritual being and they have gifts and all of this, but they also are human too.
Yes. Yes. And I talk about my temper all the time. I always do, because everyone's like, well, you're so spiritual and you're so calm. I was like, a lot of times I am, but I'm also, hard on myself. I'm also short tempered. Sometimes I'm not the most patient person in the world. And I think that's the best part about it, is understanding that idea, is saying, what it is that the object of perfection is fake. And the more you try to achieve something that isn't real, the more of a failure you're going to feel. And I use the air quotes because I love my air quotes. But it's true, because if you can't achieve something, oh, of course you're going to fail at it, because it doesn't exist. And that idea of perfection, and you have to, you're human, and you show you're vulnerable, and you say, hey, you know what, I've gone through it because I've been this, then people are like, you know what, maybe I should try that as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I just really encourage other people to share their stories, to share their vulnerabilities, because I believe that's how we connect with one another. That's how we find that deep sense of connection and oneness, is in our humanness too. And I think in the spiritual community, we forget about that because we want to be seen as, wise and fluffy and profound. And yeah, but
Yes.
you're also, yeah, exactly. It's like you're here for a reason. You're not enlightened yet. So we know that you have issues too, and that's okay. No judgment. No
Yes.
judgment at all. But we all have our part to play.
Yes, yes. And how true is that? Because there are so many people that try to put on that persona as they've got it all together and they're rock solid, and hey, I'm a very strong person, but there are things that upset me, there are things that break me down, there are things that challenge me, but it's that knowing of allowing myself to be vulnerable, to be broken down, to go from super, woman, to smash down face first on the concrete, and then build myself back up. And we do. And I love that you said that, because in the spiritual community, we're all trying to be the wise ones and the healer. And we have to just be ourselves, because that's the only way we connect to each other.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have that much of a temper like you do, but I have a tendency to escape and to hide and to go into like the depths of my soul, to where it's pretty it can be kind of destructive for me.
Yeah.
And that's a part of me that I kind of also enjoy.
Yes.
It brings me closer to my emotions and to my real self, and I have the tools now to get myself out of it and to allow myself to also feel joy and happiness and all of that. But I think it's about embracing both, and knowing that having an emotional sense of self is a part of being human. And again, it tells us a lot about our process on earth, and you know what direction we're supposed to go through next.
but they are tools, and you know, I've blown up things with my tempers at times, yeah, and especially when I was younger, I used to be able to go from 0 to 100 in a second, and I've learned to control a lot of it, but also that's part of my passion. It's what drives me, and yes, sometimes I lose control of it, and I get frustrated, but I don't hold myself accountable in the sense of saying, well, you know what, you're supposed to be this if you're this wise and you're this person and you're supposed to. No, you know what? Hey, you know what? It's something that's a challenge of mine. It makes me, it like you said, it connects me to my emotions and who I am. It allows me to think about myself. Okay, this is the situation. Did I handle it the way I wanted to? You know, I could have done so. What did I need to learn from that? Why did I react to this? What was my thought process? What was my perception? What were my judgments? And in that, it allows me to reflect on myself and the perspective and gain more knowledge. So in my aspect, as much as some people may not like my fieriness at times, I have accepted it and I enjoy it because it allows me to constantly grow.
Definitely. It gives you permission to just be who you are and to love who you are as is.
Absolutely. Permission is one thing that we really have to give ourselves, is it not?
Yeah, every day, every minute of every day.
It is, because right, how many times in this world are we constantly told that you can't do anything, like you can't do this. I was raised in Catholic school, and I never knock anybody's religion or spiritual beliefs or anything, because hey, we all have our own thing. But for me, it was hard for me to understand why I have all these rules and I have to walk this fine line. But even in society, as a female, you know, or if you're a male or whatever, you have all these rules to tell you what you can and can't do. And so you learn not to give yourself permission because you're already constantly being told by everybody, no.
Yeah, we put ourselves and each other in boxes, and that's so limiting. Because what if the whole my whole entire I went to school for nursing, and what if my entire life I was just like, nope, I went to school for nursing. I'm a nurse. That's all I'm gonna do. This is what people perceive me as. But I had this fiery, beautiful love for creative self-expression and art, but I'm just gonna like put that on the back burner because I'm gonna keep myself in this box just to please other people. And it's like, it's so, it's so, it's just not, it's just not good. It's just not good.
It is very limited. It is, and I don't think we realize how limited we are. And I think that's part of the great mystery of who we are and the unraveling. Because I know that feeling, and I always tell my students and clients, everybody, that like you're gonna go through this thing where it's just gonna be like a bomb dropped on you, and you're gonna look around and you're gonna be like, oh my God, I lie to myself. I'm dishonest. I do this, and everything just falls, and you're just looking, and then your mind's going to be like, oh my God, I'm such a horrible person. But you're not. We are conditioned to be certain things, to act certain ways, and we don't start out like that. But I think that's where we have to understand, and I love the fact that you said that we have to give ourselves permission for that, because you have to. If one thing that you do take away from your knowledge and everything that I'm sure in your book and everything, is to understand the permissions that you have to do to break free.
Yeah, yeah. Permission to just be me.
Yes, that's the hardest thing. So the last thing I want to ask you is you know, you share so much with the world, and you're always and you have so much knowledge for people to understand, and I love the fact that what is there one thing that you're looking to share with the world and you really want people to understand, if anything?
Hmm. I think it's just the fact of just not running away from your true self. I think we spend a lot of time and energy and effort doing so because we're so afraid of who we really are. But underneath all of who we think we really are is so much more than you could possibly imagine. And I just want to invite people to really honor themselves and to find that sense of connection to themselves, because it is so much greater than you could ever know. But it's definitely a journey of unfolding, and it's such a beautiful process, and there's pain and heartache and all of the stuff that comes with it. But I to be honest with you, if I wouldn't have done that myself, I don't think I would have wanted to continue on living. So I just invite people to come home to yourself, come home to the little girl, the little boy that you were before the world told you who you were, and to really just be brave enough and vulnerable enough to go deep inside and to share it with other people if that's what you feel called to do. But if not, that's okay too.
And that's such a beautiful message, because it doesn't matter what religion or spiritual or how old you are, boy, girl, it doesn't matter. This is about connecting to yourself. And I think that message of just following who you are, your journey, not running away from yourself. And we had a show a few weeks ago about honor, and how when people really want to discover themselves, they're trying to look for certain things, but honor is one of the biggest things, because we have to honor things within ourselves, including our thought processes and our perceptions. But Christine, it was such a wonderful time. It's that time of the show that unfortunately we have to say goodbye. And I absolutely loved having you, and I hope that you'll be on in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was so much fun. I would love to do this again.
Absolutely, absolutely. So before we go, do you have anything that you would like to offer our guests for listening, or anything,
Yeah.
or give out your information?
Yeah, so my book, Breaking Free, A Self-Healing Journey, is available on Amazon. So you can go ahead and look that up. My author name is Christine Marie. You can also go to my Instagram at Christine Marie Heals and follow along with my journey there. I'm also now an avid member of Clubhouse. I'm going to be doing Art for Healing clubhouses and group chats and stuff. So you can follow me there at Christine M Heals. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Christine. And you were such a wonderful guest. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. If you'd like to follow us on our social media, follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Transcendental Transformation. Our YouTube is Transcendental Transformation Radio Show. Visit my website, soulandspiritguide.com, and sign up for the newsletter to receive VIP access to hidden shows and special guest offers. And if you have any questions about the show or any shows, or just want to talk about something, please email me at transcendentaltransformations@gmail.com. And always remember to believe in yourself. And it's not our abilities or our talents that make us who we are, but it is our choices. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening.